Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova and watched the stars change from bright points to streaking lines. The quantum fold drive hummed beneath his feet, pushing their ship faster than light for the first time in human history. After 300 years of dreaming about the stars, humanity had finally built a ship that could reach them. "Captain, we're approaching the Proxima Centauri system," said Navigator Ben Collins from his station. His voice carried excitement that he tried to hide but failed. Everyone on the ship felt it. They were making history. Jake nodded and looked around the bridge. Chief Engineer Lisa Park checked her readings for the 100th time that day. Communications Officer Kate Williams sat ready at her post, waiting for any sign of alien life. They were humanity's first deep space crew, and they all knew it. "Drop us out of fold space, Ben. Let's see what's waiting for us out here." The stars stopped streaking and became points of light again. The red dwarf star Proxima Centauri glowed ahead of them, smaller and dimmer than Earth's sun. But what caught everyone's attention was something else entirely. "Captain," Kate said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I'm reading a massive structure on long-range sensors. It's not natural." Jake felt his heart speed up. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge go silent. A huge metal construction floated in space, bigger than any city on Earth. It looked like someone had built a small moon out of gleaming silver and gold metal. Strange lights moved across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "That's definitely not human," Lisa said quietly. Before anyone could respond, the Terra Nova's communication system came alive with a sound none of them had ever heard. It was like music, but not music. Like voices, but not voices. The ship's computer worked frantically to translate the signal. "Captain Morrison of the vessel Terra Nova," the translated voice said through their speakers. The voice was calm and polite, but somehow made Jake feel very small. "You will maintain your current position and prepare to be scanned. Do not attempt to flee or take hostile action." Jake looked at his crew. They had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, none of their training seemed enough. "Open a channel, Kate." "Channel open, sir." "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship Terra Nova. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent life." There was a pause. Then 3 ships appeared near the alien station. They seemed to grow out of nothing, as if space itself had folded to bring them there. Each ship was sleek and beautiful, shaped like teardrops made of liquid metal. They moved, without any visible engines, gliding through space like fish through water. "Your primitive translation systems are adequate," the voice said. "I am Commander Vextar Cole of the Zilithian Hegemony. Your species is new to us, though we have observed your world for some time." The alien ships moved closer to the Terra Nova. Jake could see lights moving under their hulls, scanning his ship with technology he couldn't begin to understand. "We are humans from the planet Earth," Jake said. "This is our first journey to another star system." "Yes, we are aware. Your technological development follows predictable patterns. You have achieved basic, faster-than-light travel using quantum manipulation, though your methods are crude and inefficient." Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. The alien's tone was like a teacher talking to a slow student. "We're always interested in learning about new technologies." "That would be inappropriate. Your species lacks the cultural and technological foundation necessary to understand true advanced science. We classify you as a Category 7 primitive species." Lisa stepped forward. "Primitive? We built this ship. We traveled 4 light years to get here. An impressive achievement for your developmental level," Vextar replied. "However, the Zilithian hegemony has ruled this galaxy for over 50,000 years. We have seen many species take their first steps into space. Most destroy themselves within a few centuries. Those that survive usually become productive members of galactic civilization under our guidance." One of the alien ships moved very close to the Terra Nova. Through the viewports, Jake could see the alien vessel's hull up close. It looked like it was made of flowing liquid that had been frozen into perfect shapes. There were no seams, no bolts, no signs of how it had been built. Your ship design is functional but limited, Vextar continued. Your weapons are primitive projectile and energy systems. Your shields are basic electromagnetic barriers. Your life support relies on mechanical systems rather than integrated biological processes. You have much to learn. We'd be honored to learn, Jake said, though the words tasted bitter in his mouth. Perhaps in time. For now you will be restricted to your home system and the 3 nearest star systems. Any attempt to expand beyond these boundaries will result in containment protocols. This is for your own protection as much as for galactic stability. Ben leaned over to Jake and whispered, "Containment protocols? What exactly does that mean?" Jake asked. Young species often overextend themselves when they first achieve interstellar travel. They encounter hazards they cannot handle, or come into conflict with more advanced civilizations. We prevent such problems by establishing appropriate boundaries. Kate spoke up from her station. Are there other species like us? Other young civilizations? Currently, there are 47 species under similar restrictions. Most accept their limitations and focus on developing their homeworlds. A few require more direct intervention. Jake didn't like the sound of that. What kind of intervention? That is not your concern at this time. You seem reasonably intelligent for a Category 7 species. We expect you will adapt to galactic reality without difficulty. The alien ships began to move away from the Terra Nova. This concludes our first contact protocol. You may return to your home system. We will monitor your activities to ensure compliance with established boundaries. Farewell, Captain Morrison. The 3 ships disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared, folding space around themselves and vanishing. The huge alien station continued to float silently in space, its lights pulsing in patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. Jake stood on his bridge, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life. Humanity had reached for the stars and found that they were already owned by someone else. Someone older, stronger, and far more advanced than they could ever hope to become. Captain, Lisa said softly, should we head home? Jake looked at the alien station one more time. Somewhere inside, that massive structure were technologies beyond human understanding. Weapons that could probably destroy Earth's entire fleet without effort. Knowledge that could advance human civilization by thousands of years, and they had been told to stay away from it all. Set course for Earth, he said finally. But first run a full sensor sweep of that station. Record everything our systems can detect. Sir, they told us not to take hostile action, Ben warned. Passive sensors aren't hostile. We're scientists and explorers. It's our job to observe and learn. As the Terra Nova turned toward home, Jake watched the alien station grow smaller on the screen. The Zilithians thought humans were primitive. They thought humanity would accept being caged like animals in a zoo. They were wrong. The trip back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Jake's crew analyzed every scrap of data they had collected. The alien technology was beyond their understanding, but not completely. Lisa found patterns in the energy readings that suggested new possibilities for human engineering. Kate discovered that the alien communication systems used principles that human scientists had only theorized about. When they reached Earth, Jake knew that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but they were also no longer free to explore it as they chose. The galaxy belonged to someone else, and humans were expected to stay in their assigned corner like good children. In his final report, to Earth Command, Jake wrote words that would change human history. We have made contact with an advanced alien civilization. They are more powerful than us in every way. They have restricted our expansion and classified us as primitives, but they have also shown us what is possible. We know now what we need to become. The age of human expansion into the galaxy was about to begin, whether the Zilithians approved or not. 5 years had passed since the Terra Nova returned to Earth with news that changed everything. In a hidden laboratory buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stared at a piece of alien metal that shouldn't exist according to human science. Run the test again, she told her assistant, Dr. Marcus Webb. I want to make sure we're reading this correctly. Marcus nodded and activated the scanning equipment. The numbers that appeared on his screen made him shake his head in wonder. The molecular structure is impossible. The atoms are arranged in patterns that should collapse under their own weight, but somehow they're more stable than anything we can build. Elena picked up the metal fragment carefully. It was no bigger than her thumb, but it had taken 3 years to cut it from the larger piece they had recovered from the Zilithian monitoring station. Jake Morrison had managed to scrape it off during their encounter, though the aliens probably didn't even notice such a tiny loss. "If we can figure out how they make this," Elena said, "we can revolutionize everything. Ship hulls, weapons, power, systems, all of it." Across the country, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in another secret facility hidden in the asteroid belt. He looked through the observation window at humanity's newest creation. The ship floating in the construction bay looked nothing like the Terra Nova. It was longer, sleeker, and covered in armor plating that gleamed with an unusual silver-blue color. "How much of their technology did we manage to copy?" Jake asked Captain Ryan Foster, who would command the new vessel. "About 30%, Ryan replied. "We still don't understand how most of their systems work, but Dr. Rodriguez's team figured out enough to make improvements. Our shields are twice as strong as before. Our weapons hit harder and use less power, and our engines are 50% more efficient." Jake nodded with satisfaction. "What about the stealth systems?" "That's the real breakthrough. We can't make ourselves invisible like they can, but we can hide our energy signatures enough to avoid their long-range sensors. As long as we're careful, they won't see us coming." The ship they were looking at was the Freedom's Edge, the first of humanity's new generation of vessels. It represented 5 years of desperate research and development, funded by money that officially didn't exist, and built by workers who had signed agreements never to talk about their jobs. President Amanda Hayes had authorized the secret program after reading Jake's first contact report. She understood what many government officials didn't want to accept. The aliens hadn't made them partners. They had made them prisoners in their own solar system. Meanwhile, far from Earth, something the Zilithians didn't know about was happening. Human colonists were building a new home on a planet they called New Denver, located in a star system just beyond the boundary the aliens had set. Governor Susan Clark walked through the main street of the colony's growing town. Around her, families worked to build homes and farms on this new world. The Johnsons were setting up a school for the colony's children. The Garcia family had started a small factory that made tools and equipment from local materials. "Any word from the sensor stations?" Susan asked her communications chief, Amy Turner. "All clear," Amy replied. "The automated probes we placed around the system haven't detected any alien activity. We're still invisible to them." Susan hoped it would stay that way. The colony was humanity's first step beyond the cage the Zilithians had built around them. If the aliens discovered New Denver, the colonists knew their lives would be in danger. The colony wasn't defenseless, though. Captain Tony Blake commanded a small defense force equipped with weapons based on captured alien technology. They had converted mining equipment into improvised cannons and built shield generators using principles learned from studying Zilithian systems. It wasn't much compared to what the aliens could bring against them, but it was better than nothing. More importantly, it sent a message. Humans wouldn't go quietly into their assigned corner of the galaxy. Back on Earth, the secret research continued. Elena's team had made another breakthrough that excited them more than the improved metals and weapons. "We cracked their communication system," Elena told Jake during one of his secret visits to the mountain laboratory. "Not completely, but enough to understand the basic principles." "What does that mean for us?" Jake asked. "It means we can talk to our colonies and ships across interstellar distances in real time. The aliens can do it, and now we can too." "Sort. Fi." Marcus stepped forward with a tablet full of technical data. "Their system uses quantum entanglement on a scale we never thought possible. We can't match their range or clarity, but we can build communicators that work across several light years instantly." Jake felt excitement building in his chest. Real-time communication across space would change everything about how humans could coordinate their expansion beyond the alien boundaries. "How long until we can start installing these systems on our ships?" 6 months, maybe less, Elena replied. "We're already building the first prototypes." While the scientists worked, Jake was planning something that would test all of humanity's new capabilities. He called it Operation Breakout, and it was designed to be humanity's announcement that they wouldn't accept alien restrictions anymore. The plan was simple in concept but dangerous in execution. Instead of waiting for the Zilithians to discover human expansion and react, Jake wanted to strike first. He would attack 3 lightly defended alien outposts simultaneously, capture what technology he could, and prove that humans were no longer the helpless primitives the aliens thought they were. Captain Ryan Foster would lead the main attack with the Freedom's Edge and 2 smaller ships. Captain Jennifer Lopez would command a second group hitting a different target. Captain Danny Kim had volunteered for the most dangerous job, leading modified ships with experimental stealth systems against the 3rd outpost. "Are we really ready for this?" Ryan asked during the final planning meeting. "If we fail, they might decide to wipe out humanity entirely." Jake looked around the room at the faces of humanity's best and brightest military officers. Each of them had volunteered for a mission that could end human civilization if it went wrong. "If we don't try," Jake said, "we'll spend the rest of human history locked in our solar system, waiting for the aliens to decide our fate. I'd rather take the risk." The meeting broke up with handshakes and quiet words of encouragement. Everyone knew they might not see each other again. Far from Earth, the Zilithian commander responsible for monitoring human space filed his routine report. Regional Commander Thisara Ven had been watching the human home system for 5 years, and nothing interesting had happened since the first contact incident. Humans remain within designated boundaries, he dictated to his automated recording system. No signs of unauthorized expansion or technological advancement beyond predicted parameters. Species continues to focus on development of home system infrastructure. Threat level remains minimal. Thisara sealed the report and sent it through the hegemony's communication network. Like most Zilithian officials, he had more important things to worry about than one primitive species confined to a single star system. There were rebellions to suppress in distant sectors and advanced civilizations that posed actual challenges to Zilithian authority. He had no idea that human ships were already moving toward their targets, using technology that shouldn't exist, and tactics that no Zilithian had ever encountered. On New Denver, Amy Turner sat at her communication station monitoring the frequencies the aliens used. She had learned to recognize the patterns of their regular patrol schedules. For months, everything had been predictable. Today was different. "Governor Clark," she called out, "I'm picking up alien signals. 3 ships, heading this way." Susan felt her blood turn cold. They had always known this day might come, but she had hoped they would have more time to prepare. "Sound the alarm," she ordered. "Get everyone to the shelters. Contact Captain Blake and tell him we have company coming." Across the colony, families dropped what they were doing and ran for the underground bunkers they had dug during their first months on the planet. Parents grabbed their children. Workers abandoned their machines. In minutes, the bustling town became empty except for the defense force. Captain Blake stood in the colony's command center, watching the sensor displays show 3 alien ships approaching fast. His small force of converted mining equipment and improvised weapons looked pathetic compared to what was coming at them. "Sir," one of his officers said, "shouldn't we surrender? Maybe they'll just relocate us instead of killing us." Blake shook his head. "The time for hiding is over. If we're going down fighting." He opened a communication channel to all his defensive positions. "This is Captain Blake to all units. Alien ships will be in range in 30 minutes. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. We're not just defending this colony. We're defending humanity's right to reach for the stars." In space above New Denver, Sub-Commander Kraltek led his patrol of 3 standard Zilithian ships toward the planet where sensors had detected unauthorized human activity. He expected to find a small, poorly defended settlement that would surrender immediately when faced with superior Zilithian technology. He was about to learn that humans were full of surprises. Sub-Commander Kraltek watched his sensor displays as his 3 ships approached the unauthorized human settlement. Everything looked exactly as he expected. A small colony with basic buildings and primitive defenses. The humans would probably surrender the moment they saw Zilithian ships, Open a communication channel, he ordered his communications officer. Let's get this over with quickly. The channel opened, but instead of frightened pleas for mercy, Kraltek heard something he had never encountered before. A human voice, calm and determined. Alien ships, this is Captain Tony Blake of the New Denver Colonial Defense Force. You are entering human space without permission. Turn around and leave immediately. Kraltek blinked his large eyes in surprise. No primitive species had ever spoken to a Zilithian commander with such boldness. Human captain, you will surrender your illegal settlement immediately. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action. Negative, Blake replied. This colony is under the protection of the Earth Coalition. Any attack on our citizens will be considered an act of war. Act of war? Kraltek almost laughed. How could a species that barely understood space travel threaten the mighty Zilithian hegemony? Begin the attack, he ordered his tactical officer. Disable their power systems, but avoid casualties if possible. We need some of them alive for questioning. The 3 Zilithian ships moved into attack formation and began charging their weapons. They had done this hundreds of times before with other primitive species. It should have been simple. It wasn't. The first indication that something was wrong came when Kraltek's ships encountered resistance they hadn't expected. Energy beams that should have easily penetrated human defenses instead struck powerful shield barriers that absorbed much of the damage. Sir, his tactical officer reported, their defensive systems are more advanced than our sensors indicated. These shields are using technology similar to our own early generation systems. Before Kraltek could respond, the human colony began shooting back. But these weren't the primitive projectile weapons he expected. Beams of focused energy reached up from the planet's surface, striking his ships with surprising accuracy and power. Impossible, Kraltek muttered. Category 7 species. Don't have energy weapons of this sophistication. His lead ship shuddered as a particularly strong blast hit its port side. Warning alarms began sounding throughout the bridge. Sir, we've lost forward shield generators, his engineering officer reported. How are they penetrating our defenses? On the planet below, Captain Blake coordinated his defensive positions with grim satisfaction. The alien ships were powerful, but they weren't invincible. Dr. Rodriguez's research had paid off. The colonists had built their weapons to exploit weaknesses in Zilithian shield technology. Target the lead ship's engine section, Blake ordered. If we can disable their mobility, the other 2 might retreat. The converted mining laser that served as their main defensive weapon swiveled toward the alien flagship. The beam that erupted from it was focused and deadly, striking the Zilithian ship exactly where Blake had aimed. In space, Kraltek felt his ship lurch as the human weapon damaged critical systems. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted. How are they targeting us so precisely? What he didn't know was that humanity had spent 5 years studying every piece of Zilithian technology they could find. They understood Zilithian tactics, weapon patterns, and ship designs better than the aliens suspected. The battle continued for 20 more minutes. Kraltek's ships had superior firepower, but the humans had prepared their defenses well. Every time the aliens tried a new attack pattern, the humans had a counter ready. Then something happened that changed everything. New contacts appeared on Kraltek's sensors, approaching fast from the outer system. Sir, I'm reading human ships incoming. 3 vessels, unknown configuration. Kraltek stared at his displays in disbelief. The ships approaching were clearly human in design, but they looked nothing like the primitive vessel his people had encountered 5 years ago. These ships were sleek, fast, and radiated energy signatures that suggested advanced technology. Captain Ryan Foster stood on the bridge of the Freedom's Edge as his small fleet approached the battle zone. He had received Amy Turner's emergency communication just in time to help defend the colony. Tactical analysis, he ordered his weapons officer. 3 Zilithian patrol ships. Standard configuration. They're focused on the planetary bombardment and haven't noticed our approach yet. Good. Let's keep it that way until we're in range. Charge all weapons and prepare for combat. Ryan had trained for this moment for 3 years, but he still felt nervous sweat on his forehead. This would be the first real test of humanity's new military technology against a prepared alien enemy. All ships, this is Foster. Attack pattern Delta. Focus fire on the trailing vessel first. We want to even the odds quickly. The 3 human ships accelerated toward the aliens, their improved engines pushing them faster than any previous human vessel. Their hulls, strengthened with materials based on Zilithian technology, gleamed in the light of the system's star. Kralthek finally noticed the approaching human ships when they were almost in weapons range. "Where did those come from?" he demanded. "Humans don't have ships like that." "Sir, they're not showing up clearly on our sensors. Some kind of stealth technology." "Stealth technology?" Kraltek's voice rose in pitch. "Category 7 species don't develop stealth systems for centuries after achieving spaceflight." The answer came in the form of concentrated weapons fire from all 3 human ships. The beams that struck Kraltek's trailing vessel weren't the weak energy pulses he expected from primitive weapons. They were focused, powerful, and devastatingly effective. His 3rd ship's shields collapsed under the assault. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as critical systems failed. Within seconds, the vessel was drifting powerless in space. "Impossible," Kraltek whispered. "They just disabled a Zilithian warship." Captain Foster pressed his advantage. "Target the 2nd ship. All weapons, continuous fire." The battle that followed was unlike anything in Kraltek's experience. The human ships moved with coordination and precision that suggested extensive tactical training. Their weapons struck with accuracy that matched Zilithian targeting systems. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know exactly where to hit for maximum damage. When the 2nd Zilithian ship began to lose power, Kraltek made a decision that would have been unthinkable an hour earlier. He ordered a retreat. "All ships, withdraw to safe distance. We need to report this to command immediately." But the humans weren't finished. As Kraltek's damaged fleet tried to escape, Captain Foster's ships pursued them, continuing to fire until the aliens used their superior speed to break away. On the bridge of his flagship, Kraltek stared at the tactical display in shock. One of his ships was completely disabled. The other had suffered major damage, and the humans had done it all with what should have been inferior technology. "Communications officer, send an urgent message to Regional Command. Priority 1 encryption." "What should I tell them, sir?" Kraltek struggled to find words that would make his superiors believe what had happened. "Tell them that our assumptions about human capabilities were completely wrong. Tell them that humanity is no longer a Category 7 species. And tell them, we need reinforcements immediately." The message that reached High Admiral Zorak Tel at Zilithian Regional Command 3 days later was so shocking that he ordered it verified twice before he would believe it. A human fleet defeated a Zilithian patrol squadron? He asked his intelligence chief. "That's impossible. Humans barely achieved interstellar flight 5 years ago." "The reports have been confirmed, sir. Sub-Commander Kraltek's account is supported by sensor data and damage assessments. The humans have somehow achieved a level of technological advancement that should have taken them decades." Zorak felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of military service. Uncertainty. The Zilithian hegemony's power was based on technological superiority over younger species. If humans could challenge that superiority, what did it mean for the Empire's control over the galaxy? "Order a full tactical assessment," he commanded. "I want to know everything about current human capabilities. Ship designs, weapon systems, defensive technologies, everything." "Yes, sir." "Should we also prepare a military response?" Zorak considered the question carefully. A proper military response would require significant resources and could escalate into a larger conflict. But if he allowed human defiance to go unpunished, other subject species might follow their example. "Prepare Battlefleet 7 for deployment. If humanity wants to test Zilithian resolve, we'll give them a demonstration they won't forget." Meanwhile, back on New Denver, Captain Blake walked through the colony's main street as people emerged from their shelters. The battle was over, and humanity had won its first victory against the galaxy's most advanced empire. Children ran to hug their parents. Workers began repairing damage from the alien attack. But everyone understood that this was just the beginning. The aliens would come back with more ships and better preparation. Governor Susan Clark stood next to Blake as they watched the colonists return to their normal lives. "How long do we have?" she asked. High Admiral Zorak Tell stood in the command center of his flagship, watching holographic displays show the positions of 60 Zilithian warships. It was the largest fleet assembled in this sector for over 1,000 years, all because of one primitive species that refused to stay in its place. "Are you certain this force is necessary?" asked War Coordinator Veltharn Kix, his second in command. "They're still just humans. 60 ships seems excessive." Zorak's expression remained stern. "Subcommander Kralthek lost 2 ships to a handful of human vessels. I won't make the mistake of underestimating them again." The fleet began moving toward human space, their sleek ships cutting through the darkness like silver arrows. Zorak planned to end human defiance quickly by attacking their homeworld directly. Once Earth fell, the scattered human colonies would surrender without further resistance. But while the Zilithian fleet traveled toward Earth, humanity was busy with plans of their own. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in a hidden command center on Mars, coordinating the most desperate defense in human history. "Status report," he called out to his staff officers. Captain Laura White stepped forward with a data tablet. "The Solar Defense Network is online. All orbital platforms are armed and ready. The asteroid belt fortifications are complete." "What about the fleet?" 87 ships ready for combat, including 15 of the new advanced designs. "Captain, Steve Roberts commands the outer defense line. Captain Nancy Ford leads the inner system patrol." Jake nodded grimly. 87 ships against 60 alien vessels might seem like good odds, but every human officer knew the truth. Zilithian ships were individually more powerful than anything humanity could build. The coming battle would depend on tactics, courage, and luck. Dr. Elena Rodriguez entered the command center carrying a small device that looked like a metal sphere covered in blinking lights. "Admiral, we've completed the new weapon system. If it works, it could change everything." "Tell me," Jake said. "We call it a harmony disruptor. Zilithian shields work by creating energy patterns that deflect incoming attacks. This device broadcasts signals that interfere with those patterns. It won't completely drop their shields, but it will weaken them significantly." Jake took the device and examined it carefully. It was barely larger than a baseball, but if Elena was right, it represented humanity's best hope for survival. "How many do we have?" 50 units, installed on our most important ships and defense platforms. Across the solar system, human defenders prepared for the battle of their lives. On Ceres Station, Defense Coordinator Helen Chang supervised the final checks on the massive railgun batteries hidden inside the asteroid. The weapons were disguised to look like ordinary mining equipment, but they could fire projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Engineer Carlos Mendez worked frantically in the asteroid belt, setting up the minefield that would be humanity's first line of defense. Each mine was designed to look like space debris until alien ships came close enough to trigger them. "How many mines do we have deployed?" asked his assistant. 3,000, scattered across the most likely approach routes. They won't stop the alien fleet, but they'll slow them down and maybe damage a few ships. On Earth, President Amanda Hayes addressed the world from her underground command bunker. Her speech was broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system and beyond. "Citizens of Earth and all human colonies," she began, "today we face the greatest challenge in our species' history. An alien empire that has ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years is coming to destroy us because we refuse to accept their restrictions on our freedom." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "They think we're too young, too primitive, too weak to stand against them. They're about to learn that they're wrong. Humanity doesn't surrender. We don't accept cages. We fight for our right to reach for the stars." In space near Neptune, Captain Steve Roberts waited with the outer defense fleet as his sensors detected the approaching enemy. The Zilithian ships appeared on his screens like a constellation of deadly stars, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. "All ships, this is Roberts. Enemy fleet detected at long range. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. All units prepare for combat." The human ships spread out across space, using asteroids and small moons as cover. They wouldn't meet the aliens in a direct battle. Instead, they would use hit-and-run tactics, trying to damage enemy ships while avoiding destruction themselves. As the Zilithian fleet entered the outer solar system, Zorak felt confident about the coming battle. His ships were faster, more heavily armed, and protected by shields that had never been penetrated by primitive weapons. "Deploy scout ships," he ordered. "I want full sensor sweeps of all human positions." The scouts that deployed ahead of his main fleet immediately ran into Carlos Mendez's minefield. The first explosions caught the Zilithians completely by surprise. "Sir, we're detecting multiple explosive devices throughout the asteroid belt," reported his sensor officer. "They're disguised as natural debris." Zorak frowned. "Mines? That's an ancient tactic. No civilized species has used mine warfare for millennia. But the mines were effective. 3 Zilithian scout ships suffered damage before the fleet could map safe routes through the asteroid belt." Zorak began to realize that humans fought differently than any enemy he had encountered. "Advance with caution," he ordered. These humans seemed to favor primitive but effective tactics. As the alien fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, Captain Roberts launched the first wave of attacks. Human ships darted out from behind asteroids, fired their weapons, and disappeared again before the Zilithians could respond effectively. Pilot Alice Turner led a squadron of small fighters in a desperate attack on the alien flagship. Her ships were tiny compared to the massive Zilithian vessel, but they were fast and hard to target. "All fighters focus on the command ship's sensor arrays," she commanded. "If we can blind them, the rest of our fleet will have a better chance." Her fighters swept in like angry wasps, their weapons striking at the alien ship's most vulnerable points. The Zilithians tried to swat them away with defensive fire, but Alice's pilots were too skilled and too desperate to be stopped easily. On the Zilithian flagship, alarms sounded as human weapons found their targets. "Sir, we're losing sensor capability," reported the tactical officer. "These fighters are smaller and faster than our targeting systems can handle effectively." Zorak watched in growing frustration as his massive fleet struggled against an enemy that refused to fight fairly. "Launch interceptors. Clear those fighters away from our ships." The battle spread across millions of kilometers of space as both fleets maneuvered for advantage. Human ships used their knowledge of the solar system to set ambushes among the planets and moons. Zilithian vessels relied on their superior firepower to break through human defensive lines. Captain Nancy Ford commanded the defense of Mars orbit when 6 Zilithian heavy cruisers broke through the outer defenses. Her ships were outnumbered and outgunned, but she had one advantage the aliens didn't expect. "Activate the Harmony disruptors," she ordered. Elena Rodriguez's new weapons came online across Ford's fleet. The effect on the Zilithian ships was immediate and dramatic. Their shields flickered and weakened as the disruptor signals interfered with their energy patterns. "All ships concentrate fire on the lead cruiser," Ford commanded. "Their shields are down to 60% strength." Human weapons that should have been ineffective against Zilithian defenses suddenly began penetrating their targets. The lead enemy cruiser staggered under the assault, its hull cracking as human energy beams found their mark. For the first time in the battle, a Zilithian heavy warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The other alien ships retreated in confusion, unable to understand how their defenses had failed. The battle raged for 18 hours as it moved steadily toward Earth. Both sides suffered losses, but the humans were giving better than they got. Zorak's fleet, which had started with 60 ships, was down to 43 functional vessels. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from multiple sectors. Other species are launching rebellions throughout the Empire. They're using human tactics and weapons." Zorak felt a chill of fear. If humanity's example inspired other subject species to rebel, the entire Zilithian Empire could collapse. He had to end this battle quickly and crush human resistance before it spread further. "All ships, maximum speed toward Earth," he ordered. "Ignore the human fleet. We'll destroy their homeworld and end this rebellion." But as the Zilithian fleet approached Earth, they found that humanity had saved the best surprise for last. The Kyo planet's moon had been converted into a massive weapons platform. bristling with railguns and energy cannons powered by fusion reactors hidden beneath its surface. Communications Officer Johnny Mitchell coordinated the lunar defenses from a bunker, deep inside the moon. All batteries target the alien flagship. Fire when ready. The moon seemed to explode with light as hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously. The beams and projectiles that reached toward the Zilithian fleet were more powerful than anything the aliens had faced in the battle so far. Zorak's flagship shuddered under the impact of weapons that hit like the hammer of an angry god. Impossible, he breathed. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of his flagship Endeavour, watching the largest human fleet ever assembled prepare for the most dangerous mission in their history. 200 ships floated in formation near Jupiter, their hulls gleaming with the advanced technology humanity had developed through years of desperate innovation. Final status report, Jake called out to his staff. Captain Ryan Foster stepped forward. All ships ready for Operation Starbreak. The stealth ships under Captain Danny Kim are already in position. The main assault fleet is prepared. Ground forces, under General Patricia Hill, are loaded and ready. Jake nodded and looked at the holographic display showing their target. Nexus Prime, the administrative center of the Zilithian regional government, controlled over 200 star systems. If humanity could capture it, the psychological impact would shake the entire Zilithian empire. Dr. Rodriguez, is your new weapon ready? Elena smiled confidently. The computer virus is loaded into our communication systems. Programmer Lisa Carter and analyst Robert Hayes have tested it dozens of times. It should spread through their networks faster than they can stop it. The virus was humanity's most ambitious technological achievement. Instead of trying to match Zilithian technology directly, human programmers had found a different approach. They would attack the aliens' greatest strength, their interconnected computer systems. Across the galaxy, other species watched humanity's preparations with growing hope. The Corvani had already begun their own rebellion, inspired by human victories. The Hesperian resistance was sabotaging Zilithian supply lines. Even some Zilithian colonies were questioning their loyalty to the Empire. Emperor Thesakaranvel sat on his throne on the capital world of Zephyria, reading reports that filled him with growing alarm. Half his empire was in rebellion. His most trusted admirals had been defeated by primitive humans. Younger species that had served the hegemony for centuries were now demanding independence. How many systems have we lost? He asked his chief advisor, Progressive Admiral Kesara Din. 47 systems have declared independence. 63 more are experiencing significant unrest. The humans seem to be coordinating with multiple rebel groups. The Emperor's scaled hands clenched into fists. One young species is destroying everything we built over 50,000 years. How is this possible? Kesara had been asking herself the same question. Perhaps, my lord, the problem is not their strength but our assumptions. We believed that age meant wisdom, that technology meant superiority. The humans have shown us that innovation and adaptability can be more powerful than either. Before the Emperor could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the palace. An aide rushed in with urgent news. My lord, human ships have been detected approaching Nexus Prime. They're attacking our regional capital. The Emperor felt something he had never experienced in his long life: fear. If the humans could threaten Nexus Prime, nowhere in his empire was safe. At Nexus Prime, Admiral Jake Morrison watched his battle plan unfold with careful precision. The attack had begun with Captain Kim's stealth ship slipping past the outer defenses and attacking the communication arrays that would have warned the system of the coming assault. Phase 1 complete, Kim reported. Enemy long-range communications are down. They can't call for reinforcements. Begin Phase 2, Jake ordered. Captain Foster's main battle fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. The Zilithian defenders, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of so many human ships, scrambled to organize their defenses. High Admiral Zorak Tell, now commanding the defense of Nexus Prime after his defeat at Earth, stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. 200 human ships? Where did they get so many vessels? His tactical officer's voice was grim. Sir, these aren't the same ships we fought at Earth. They're larger, more advanced. Some of them are using completely new designs. Zorak felt his confidence crumble. Every time the Zilithians thought they understood human capabilities, the humans surprised them with something new. As the space battle raged around Nexus Prime, Dr. Rodriguez activated her most ambitious creation. The computer virus spread through Zilithian networks like digital wildfire, carried by their own communication systems. Virus deployment successful, she reported to Jake. It's spreading faster than we hoped. Their automated systems are starting to malfunction. On Zilithian ships throughout the system, computer screens flickered and displays showed incorrect information. Weapons systems fired at wrong targets. Navigation computers calculated impossible courses. The virus didn't destroy anything, but it made everything unreliable. Captain Jennifer Lopez led a squadron of human fighters through the chaos, taking advantage of the confusion to strike at key targets. Her pilots were outnumbered, but the Zilithian defenders couldn't coordinate their responses effectively. Target the orbital defense platforms, she ordered. While their computers are confused, we can take out their big guns. The fighters swept through the Zilithian defenses like arrows, through a broken shield. Platform after platform exploded under human weapons as the aliens struggled to respond to threats they couldn't track properly. Meanwhile, General Patricia Hill prepared her ground forces for the most dangerous part of the mission. Landing on Nexus Prime itself and capturing the government complex would require fighting through the heart of Zilithian power. Remember, we're not trying to destroy everything, she told her troops. We want to capture their leaders and their records. This is about sending a message, not revenge. The landing craft that carried Hill's soldiers looked nothing like the transport ships humanity had used 5 years earlier. These vessels were fast, heavily armored, and equipped with shields that could protect them during atmospheric entry. Combat engineer Derek Brown led the first wave of troops as they landed near the capital city. The Zilithian ground forces they encountered were well-equipped, but unprepared for human tactics. Use cover and move fast, Brown ordered his squad. Don't let them pin us down in open ground. The battle for Nexus Prime's capital became a street-by-street fight as human soldiers pushed toward the government complex. The Zilithians had superior individual weapons, but humans had superior teamwork and adaptability. Communications specialist Amy Turner, now serving with the ground forces, coordinated between different human units while jamming Zilithian communications. 3rd Battalion, enemy reinforcements coming from the east. 2nd Battalion can flank them if you hold your position. The coordination that had always been humanity's strength proved decisive in urban combat. While Zilithian forces fought as individuals or small groups, humans fought as a unified force. In the government complex, High Admiral Zorak made his final stand with a handful of loyal officers. As human soldiers surrounded the building, he sent one last message to the Emperor. My lord, Nexus Prime has fallen. The humans have achieved the impossible. They have defeated us not through superior technology, but through superior adaptability. Perhaps it is time to consider that our empire's greatest weakness is our inability to change. Admiral Jake Morrison entered the captured government complex with a small escort of Marines. He found Zorak waiting in the main command center, his hands raised in surrender. Admiral Morrison, the Zilithian commander said formally, I surrender this facility and my forces to your command. Jake studied the alien officer who had been his enemy for so long. Admiral Zorak, I want you to understand something. We didn't come here to destroy your people. We came here to prove that you don't have the right to cage ours. I begin to understand that, Zorak replied quietly. In 50,000 years of rule, we never encountered a species like humanity. You force change wherever you go. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needed. The capture of Nexus Prime sent shockwaves throughout the Zilithian Empire. When news reached the capital, Emperor Thysacaranvel faced a crisis that threatened to tear his government apart. Progressive Admiral Kesara Din stood before the Emperor with a proposal that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. My lord, we must negotiate with the humans. Total war will destroy both our civilizations. Negotiate? The Emperor's voice was filled with disbelief. With primitives who have been in space for less than a decade? They are no longer primitives, my lord. They have become something we never expected. They have become our equals. The peace negotiations that followed took place on a neutral world between human and Zilithian space. Admiral Morrison represented humanity, while Admiral Kesara Din spoke for a reformed Zilithian government. Our terms are simple, Morrison said. Recognition of species equality throughout the galaxy. An end to the classification system that labels younger civilizations as primitives. And the right of all species to determine their own destiny. Kesara. Din nodded slowly. The hegemony accepts these terms. In return, we ask for your help in transforming our empire into something better, something that serves all species rather than ruling them. President Amanda Hayes signed the treaty that ended the war and established the Galactic Federation. Under the new system, species would be judged not by their age or technology, but by their contributions to galactic civilization.